Well, hello. Good morning and happy Saturday. My name is Dr. Shy Brown. I am the founder and president of Building Bridges and your host for this Exposed Live series. We appreciate you for joining us today. And if this is your first time joining us, Building Bridges, we are a nonprofit that exposes, equips, and empowers young girls to pursue STEM through self-awareness strategies. And through our Exposed Live platform, we hope to do two things, actually. One, we want to expose students to all different types of STEM career opportunities. And two, we want to be able to highlight particularly women of color and highlight their STEM accomplishments so they can share what they've been doing in their respective STEM career fields. And today I have a very, very special guest with me. Her name is Dr. Bich-Van Pham, and she is actually Research and Development Associate Director at Kraft-Heinz. So she works on the innovation team, and she's thinking of all these really cool food innovative products to come out on the market. And actually, she's been in the consumer packaged good industry for 14 years. That is a very long time. She has a wealth of knowledge, and I can't wait to hear about it. She received her PhD in chemical engineering from Purdue University and her bachelor's in science degree also in chemical engineering from Northwestern University. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bich.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's get into it. I want to always, we always ask our guests about how did they grow up and were they exposed to science as a little girl? So tell us about that.
Yeah, so my parents were refugees. They came to the US from Vietnam because of the Vietnam War. And so they didn't have much of an education when they arrived. But my dad worked multiple jobs, got his associate's degree, and then eventually his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And that's how I think he decided that like engineering is a lucrative career.
Okay.
You can support your family. There's lots of job opportunities. So we must become engineers.
Okay.
So it was instilled in us from a very young age that like you gotta excel at math and science. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions being Asian that, oh, you're like naturally good at math,
Numbers,
right? And all of that. And I'm here to say it's not true.
Okay.
I don't think it came naturally to me, but you study and like it's like a muscle, it's a skill you build. I don't think it was something that I thought too much about when I was growing up, like, oh, yes, like science and engineering, but I love creativity. And that's what I think that a lot of people don't make the connection. It's like, oh, you must be good at math and science to be an engineer or a scientist. And math and science is more tools to be creative, to find solutions to problems in the world.
Yes. And I love the fact you said the word creativity. I am a big advocate for creativity and exposure. Like I love being creative myself. So hearing you say that you just don't have to be all about math and science, but there's this creative component. It's very unique. And a lot of times I think students, children, they forget that, oh, I just have to be about numbers or I just have to like chemicals and blow up things. But no, there's a creative process.
Yeah. I think a lot of time, I think it's changing now, but I think in the past, scientists have been portrayed as like this lone person in a lab, creating something on their own. But really, it's a lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration and problem solving together. It's not just like hidden away somewhere.
Yeah, and thinking outside the box, right?
Right, yeah, and that's what it is, like finding the tools to problem solve together. And that's what I was interested in growing up, just being creative and arts. And I thought like arts and literature were creative outlets, but engineering and science are also creative outlets. You're creating something new to bring to the world and thinking about like, how do I approach this in a different way?
Wow. I love that. Thank you for saying that, because that just really just lit me up on the inside, just hearing that. Okay. So your dad is saying engineering is the way to go. And you're this young girl, you're progressing through middle school and high school. but did you really like your science and STEM classes?
I think I liked parts of it. It was
Okay.
like when you're doing the science experiments, that's kind of interesting, right? You're seeing something happen. What I didn't like was like the memorization and all of that stuff, where I think now with new technology and tools, I think we're finding you don't have to memorize everything. You can look it up. And so I think that eases the load a little bit because there's only so much capacity up here to remember.
True.
And it's not just about remembering and regurgitation, but like how do you put the pieces together? That's the important part. So I liked that part, and like I liked chemistry, and I'm like, oh, like chemical reactions, and you combine two things and something happens. So I thought, oh, I'll go into chemical engineering.
Okay.
Chemical engineering is a lot different than I thought it would be.
Okay.
It's not just chemistry, it's very different than chemistry.
Okay.
And once I got into it, it's really about large scale reactions and productions and like heat transfer, mass transfer. And I'm like, I didn't really understand any of that until like a junior year of college. And a lot of the examples that they use in school were from the petroleum industry, large chemical industries, a little bit of pharmaceutical. So that was the only thing I thought that I could do with a chemical engineering degree. I didn't know that there were other avenues until I was interviewing, looking for jobs. And actually, as a chemical engineer, there's so many different avenues you can go into, from like manufacturing to like what I do now in R&D in food and beverages. I didn't even know that that was a possibility until I was at a career fair and somebody was like, oh yes, the food and beverage companies are hiring chemical engineers.
See, wow, full circle again. You just said you didn't even know. You just thought you were going to be working with gases and like and all that good stuff. But there was this food and industry side that you had no idea that you could go into with your
because you need, like you said, exposure. So in school, I was not exposed to food and beverage. All I was exposed to was like petrochemicals. And so you don't know what you don't know. So the more you get out there, talk to people, find out, hey, what do you do? What other opportunities? Like even now in my career at the various companies, you run into people in the company that do very niche things that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. So like all these regulatory and quality folks, or like patent exploration, things like that, that like people do, like librarians for like corporate entities. So.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you saying that. You heard it from Dr. Big. Exposure is good, because she was preparing for this one path, but she went to a career fair and she was looking for a job, and someone spoke to her, and now she found out, oh, I could do this in the food and beverage industry, which you've been doing this for 14 years.
Yes.
Wow. Tell us more about that. So you really have some skin in the game with doing chemical engineering and food and beverage industry. Share with us.
Yeah. So what I love about the food and beverage industry is like you're finding problems or delighting consumers directly with the products that you're making. So making chips or Lunchables or pasta sauces and things like that, you put them out in market and people are interacting with them and they know what it is. If you say, hey, I make Tostitos, or I make Oscar Mayer, whatever, they're like, oh yes, I've heard of that, I've tried it. They have an opinion of like, oh, I love it or I hate it, you should do this, I have an idea for you. Versus I think if I said, hey, I make polyethylene, like people be like, what is that? And I have lots of friends who work in that industry. They have fantastic careers. They love what they're doing because, again, it's about creativity, solving problems. What you don't realize is chemical engineers probably touch everything that you interact with your life, because it's mass scale production. So like polyethylene and all those plastic polymers make up a large amount of stuff that we interact with in our life. So all important things, all useful. Trying to make them more sustainable, more green as well. So solving problems.
Awesome. And are you solving problems with your current role?
Yeah, so as an industry, we're trying to make food more sustainable, more healthy for folks, and then in the same time make them still delicious and like delightful for people. So yes, we're trying to find solutions for health and like on the go. How do you feed your family quickly, or like Gen Z, I don't know how to cook in the kitchen. Like, how do we make simple solutions for you to go like make this fancy meal in the kitchen without having a culinary degree? So,
which brings, going back to what you said early in the conversation, creativity, because it takes a lot of creativity to even come up with a concept.
Yeah.
To say, okay, we're going to have this particular product for the Gen Z generation that doesn't have time to cook, don't know how to cook, but they can get this wonderful meal by doing this.
Yeah, it could be a packaging solution, it could be a product solution, and it takes research. Like you're looking at new technologies, processes, ingredients, like how do I make like this powder dissolve more quickly? If like somebody needs to cook this sauce and it needs to be ready in like 5 minutes, like how does that happen?
Yeah. That is wonderful. And with your experience, 14 years, are there like any significant accomplishments that you had over the 14 years that people may not know that you worked on this particular product? Like, can you share some of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, like innovations, I think they say like only 10% of innovation really succeeds. Like you come up with tons of ideas and like sometimes they take off and a lot of times they don't. And it doesn't necessarily mean the product is bad. It's just like the timing. There's lots of market issues like pricing and things like that. And so one of the things that I worked on has stuck in market is the Tostitos Cantina line, the thin and crispy and traditional. It's still in market, so I love to see it every time.
Also
in a store.
You go down the aisle like, oh man, I worked on that.
Yeah, it's really cool, and you can actually point and touch something physical and be like, yes, this is part of my contribution.
Yes.
But besides that, I love working for these large companies like PepsiCo or now Kraft-Heinz, where I get the opportunity to leverage my corporate presence and give back to the community and be involved in STEM and uplift and amplify the message of like, hey, there's space in STEM for women of color, and all people who could be interested and feel like they are not good at math and science. There's space for everybody.
There is. And thank you for sharing that. So now you know that you've heard it first. We have Dr. Bick here. She's working on that Katina line. I still see it in the stores. And if you're a fan now, you know, like, hey, I heard someone talk about that and she worked on it. So thank you for sharing like your time spent in food and beverage industry and still spending time in the food and beverage industry. Along the way, did anyone like inspire you on your STEM journey?
I mean, there's so many people throughout my career and time in school, like my peers, my professors, my colleagues. Like one of the most, I think, impactful organizations that I was a part of was the Women in Engineering program at Purdue University. It's filled with so many women who were like so smart and compassionate and empathetic, because like you feel like a lot of times when you're on this STEM journey that you're alone, and that this is so hard, why don't I get it? And then you meet this group of women and you're like, I'm not alone. It's hard for a lot of people. It's not something that you have to struggle with on your own. And so I try to help create that space wherever I am, with like at PepsiCo, starting the Women in Engineering group for a Society of Women Engineers. And then hopefully at Kraft-Heinz, we can create the same space to kind of bring everybody together and say like, hey, how do we all lift each other up?
That is awesome. And I really appreciate you for being a strong advocate in the workplace, because that is needed so much. And I will have to say, well, question would be like, how would you inspire like young girls to pursue this STEM journey with confidence? Like they're just learning about STEM and they're getting excited, but they're like, what, middle school, high school? How do you encourage them?
I think it's just getting out there and exposure to it, like getting your hands a little dirty and like, okay, like I think all the modules you have with like the skincare
Yeah.
and like the bath bombs, like doing that, like something that ties into something they're interested in kind of helps also. And there's exposure. And there's, I think, I just went to a recent event for the Chicago Innovation Group, and they have a STEM conference for young kids. And it's like learning that you're failing a lot of times when you're doing experiments, when you're doing science, and that's part of the process. And that's okay. And it's kind of rinse and repeat.
Yes.
Like they say, research, it's research. You keep doing it over and over again. It's like you're not going to hit on the answer the first time you go out there. And
it's research. You have to redo it again. Research. I've never heard it in that way. I'll just say research, but it's research. So you got to go back and find something else.
Yeah.
Then you find something. Oh, let me go look this up. Is redoing it all over again. Yeah. But you pointed out you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, like, that failure can lead to your next greatest triumph based upon the research.
Yes. Yeah, and most like great scientists, it's not like Albert Einstein developed the theory of relativity on his first try. Like it's probably something that people worked on for years. And that's what you don't see behind the scenes are like these problems and these solutions have been worked on by many people for years.
Yes, yes. Awesome. That is great. And I have one last question for you. We ask our guests always this question. What does exposure is good mean to you?
Exposure is good means that you get out there and everybody has a unique story and experience, and hopefully sharing it resonates with somebody out there and sparks a light in them that they can find something that they're passionate about, that they want to investigate and like learn more about.
That is awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for just sharing and dropping all these wisdom insights, because I picked up on the idea you brought up creativity early on, and you brought up things about, failing and being okay to fail and learn from that. And then I'm not going to get research. I'm not going to forget that at all. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate having you here with us.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us for this episode. We hope you were inspired by Dr. Big and learning more about her STEM career in the food and beverage industry. So if you are watching and you are someone that is a woman of color and you're in the STEM field or have a STEM career and you want to be a part of this series, feel free to go to our website at iambb.com, go to our reach, and you can sign up to be a part of this episode. Or if you're watching this and you know someone that like, hey, such and such should be on that show, tell them about this and share our YouTube with them. Also, today is the last day of our back to school supplies campaign, the last day to donate. We've been doing a lot of great things across the summer. We've already had 2 events where we've been giving away Building Bridges backpacks filled with school supplies and healthy snacks. And we're going to do another round next Saturday at the Inglewood Village Market. So we're ending our supply campaign fundraiser today. So go to our website and you can actually donate to that as well. Also, if you want to support and wear our brand, I'm actually wearing one of our t-shirts that says I am empowered, but it looks a little weird. It's dual empowerment. So it's backwards where I can look at it and remind myself I am empowered. But when people see me, they can see that the empowered is below the I am, and they can read it and empower them themselves as they read the t-shirt. So if you're interested in learning more, again, you can go to our website, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And as always, feel free to share our YouTube link with those students that are wanting to learn more about these amazing STEM professionals we're bringing to this amazing platform. All right. Any last words, Vic?
Have a great week.
All right. Thanks.